What's going on, guys? It is Tyler from the Keep Pounding podcast, and today our show today is to be about some recent Panther news, what our needs are heading into free agency, some possible free agents we could target, and then uh, who will be the next cap casualty as well. Um, so, into recent news, we have Xavier Leggett. So, Uh, as you guys may have heard already, he had surgery on his foot. The recovery time will be pretty short, so he should be ready by training camp and all that. Seemed like it was a pretty minor surgery, but no surgery for his wrist, which is what he was complaining about um, earlier in the season. Several drop passes, just kept complaining about the wrist. So just assumed that he was to be going into the off season going for surgery, and just kind of curious, like how severe or not it was, and it wasn't severe enough that the doctors determined that he needed it. They're saying he doesn't need surgery. They're basically saying that he needs to just rest it and it'll heal on its own. But I, do expect hopefully he continues to improve and isn't dropping the big passes. So that was a big concern in the middle and the end of the season. Several big drop passes in mid games, but route running seemed to improve as the season went on. But drops were a concern last year for sure. Then we have Jonathan Brooks. So Jonathan Brooks initially tore his ACL, his right knee, November of 2023. In the Eagles game, early December this past season, he suffered a non-contact injury to the same knee in the first quarter. Most likely, I believe he'll be out for the 2025 season. If he does come back, it'll be late in the season or in the playoffs if we make the playoffs. But heading into free agency, running back is definitely somewhat of a need. It seemed like it was going to be a strength if Brooks stayed healthy and played to what we all expected him to be at. But with a fully torn ACL end of the season last year, I personally think that they're going to let him rest unless for some reason we just make a really good push into the playoffs. But running back is definitely a position of need. It may not be a big, huge position of need, but it's definitely a position we need to look at. And we'll go over some people that are testing the market. But I don't know. We'll see what the running back looks like, their position looks like by the start of the coming up season. But we definitely need to address it, whether it's free agency and or the draft. But I prefer the draft. I feel like we will draft a running back, but late. Should not be second round, but there's definitely a lot of good players in the upcoming draft that could fill a need for us for sure. The other news that we have is Shaq Thompson. So he is officially done in Carolina. I am surprised the Panthers came off like it's 100% over. They didn't say that they would let him test the market and that they would be interested in bringing him back. This tells me that they want Trevin to take the reps and they just want to move in a different direction. Shaq's been with us since, I believe, 2015, so about 10 years. So, well respected in the locker room, a captain, leader on the team, great player, great person on and off the field. Shaq wasn't on the level of Luke Kuechly or Thomas Davis, but he was a really good player. He loved being a Panther. He took a pay cut a couple years ago to stay here. He was ranked fourth in Panther history in tackles, so good player, but unfortunately a lot of injuries, season-ending injuries back to back, and they drafted Trevin Wallace in the third round last year. They signed Josie Jewell. I think they're just going to add to that room and get younger. And Shaq is getting older, injury prone. And I just think that was most likely the reason why they didn't even entertain bringing him back. So end of an era for Shaq, but I hope he finds a place, a home, that he's happy with. But if he plays us, I hope he doesn't play well. All right. And then, so center. So Dan Morgan said Brand Tillis has been in contact with Austin's and Cade's agents. Dan wants to bring them both back, which I think is amazing. I was actually surprised about this as far as Austin Corbett um, even being a possibility to bring them back because of the injuries he has sustained. He had a couple, obviously last year, he had a season ending injury, in the year before that, he had an injury as well. I honestly, priority wise, I'd rather have Cade Mays back at center than Austin, but Austin did play well when he was in. Uh, but Cade played really well when he was a starter. They could resign also, not just center competition, but he also could be a right guard backup because again he played right guard not last season, but the season before that, before they picked up Robert Hunt in free agency last offseason. So I think having him at center, then his versatility on the line, if they don't bring back Brady Christensen, which I don't think they will, that could be a reason why they bring him back, but on a team friendly deal. Um, I did see a report out there as far as Austin Corbett, David Newton saying that Austin doesn't want any competition. He deserves the right to play there basically without competition. And when I read that, even before I saw Austin's um, response to that on Twitter, I'm like, I just don't believe anything that David Newton says. And the guy is a joke as a beat writer and reporter for the Panthers. He's and any solid good Panther fan knows he's a joke. I really don't think any legit football fan that's a true Panther fan gets their information from ESPN David Newton. So those are more casual fans. But I did like that Austin wasn't afraid to clap back, stating that, hey, you want to be in the locker. You're crying that you're not in the locker room and that you want to be there to get to know us, and you don't know a thing about me. So calling him out, I feel like David Newton should be called out a little bit more than he is. Um, I'm not afraid to, truth is the truth, facts are the facts. The guy doesn't. I don't understand how he has a position um, as a writer and someone that covers the Panthers. I just think he's like a part of a group that likes gossip and TMZ stuff versus actual reporting. So, he does ask the tough questions, but sometimes his questions are stupid. That's the nicest way I can put it. So we'll see if Dan Morgan brings back Austin Corbett and Cade Mays. But I think if you could not bring them both back, Cade Mays deserves the job, but still bringing in competition for Cade Mays as well, whether it's a draft or free agency. Right. Another news, Taylor Moton. So Taylor Moton, his current cap hit is over $31 million for this coming up season. Dan Morgan did say that he's fine with either extending Timo or leaving his contract as is. He said he still needs to sit down with Brant and Dave to discuss Moton's future with the team. So to me, when I first read this, it just sounded like that Dan was like, hey, I'm good with just paying him the 31 million this year, and then figure out, do we try to extend him, whether it's next season, or do we move on from him? Do we extend him now? That's the vibe I got from it. Some people are like, oh, like there's potential about Taylor Moton being traded, and well, I don't see that because one, he's a solid right tackle, and unless I think I can see them moving on for them next year, maybe, and we'll see like what moves they make in free agency and the draft, and that'll let kind of, if they don't extend him before the season ends or before the season begins, we'll see. But I still don't see a trade happening. Doesn't make sense. We don't have a backup right tackle that can take over for him. So I just think it's either paying him and then maybe drafting a right tackle in the second or third round, or we'll see. But I would like to have him come back another 2-3 years. He's been solid. He's missed a game or two his whole career, and that was last season. He's 30, but that's not old for right tackle. He's a reliable man. He's been available and excellent protecting Bryce. But we'll see. I do see us. I can't see us drafting a project right tackle at future as a future replacement. But we'll see what Dan and company do with T-Mobile for the draft, and that'll let me know what we may likely do moving forward. Then we have J.C. Horn. So Brent Tillis is in contact with his agent. It does seem like negotiations are going well, and that a deal seems like a deal is going to be done very soon. I do feel and hope that his health does factor into the amount on his contract. I do see us signing him for 3 to 4 years, around 20-25 million per year. I do have faith in Brand that he'll have a deal that makes sense for both sides. It's not going to be like breaking the market, but it's not going to be cheap either. Um, we need and have to sign JC, but I'm slightly concerned just due to his health and not being available for several seasons. Granted, they were freak injuries, but those type of injuries they start to pile up. So hopefully JC will stay healthy because when he is, he's easily a top 10 cornerback in this league. So uh, there, it seems like a deal is inevitable. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, but it seems like it's going to be sooner rather than later. So, but we got to figure out who's going to be CB2. Whether that's re-signing Mike Jackson and then drafting a corner. We'll see. But we got to re-sign JC. He's a blue chip player, great player. Just hopefully he can continue staying healthy. All right. Okay, so some players that got cut. Dane Jackson. So Dane signed a 2-year deal worth $8.5 million March of last year. He was expected to compete for a starting role opposite of J.C. Horn. However, his season was derailed early by a hamstring injury during training camp, causing him to miss the first 6 games and land on injured reserve. Mike Jackson took that job and never gave it back. Even when healthy, he didn't even really get it. He didn't get any really playing time. When they cut him, we saved $3.35 million in savings, only $2.5 million in dead cap. I'm good with this. He's not really doesn't seem like he's going to compete. Moving forward, especially if we re-sign Mike Jackson, and we can just allocate that money and put it somewhere else. So I'm good with this. Did really think that with ties with Dan and Dave from Seattle, thought this would work out, but it didn't. But luckily, Mike Jackson did. All right, who's next? So you have Dane Jackson that got cut, but who's next? So Miles Sanders is a possibility. We would save $6.7 million if we did cut him. He had one good game last season. I feel like we should draft a running back in the later rounds. I'd rather draft than get a free agent. To be honest, there's a lot of good potential running backs in this draft. I feel like we should draft, or Dan and Brandt are talking to Miles' agents. It sounds like it'll likely be a pay cut or he'll be released. So we'll see. So I think either way, no matter what we do, we're going to save some money and add to the cap. But we'll see if it's a full cut or if we get a restructure. So we'll see. Shy Tuttle, he just is not a fit at nose tackle. He isn't it. Run defense was below average. And I think this is the number one priority in free agency and or the draft, in my opinion. The number one priority, especially in free agency, we have to get a bona fide nose tackle. And we'll go over some potential players moving forward, but we need to get a legit nose tackle. How we address the offensive line with Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis, that's how we need to address the defensive line. Obviously, the defense had the horrible. They couldn't stop the run to save their lives. So they need to address nose tackle to allow the edge rushers to do their job. Defensive ends and edge rushers, Derek Brown, and hopefully we'll get another guy in free agency. But we need a nose tackle. But it's not a matter of if, but when Shy is getting cut, in my opinion, he will be cut. And we will save $6.5 million. I'm not sure what the dead cap is on that, but we'll save $6.5 million, which we can use somewhere else. And another person I think that we may get rid of is Ashawn Robinson. So he signed a 3-year, $22.5 million contract with 10.4 million guaranteed. Um, was signed to bolster the defensive line, specifically in run defense. But I just think we can do better. He was average at best last season. We would save 7.5 million, and the dead cap is only 650,000. I could see us keeping him for depth, but I still think this is a possibility that could happen. But we'll see. We'll see. But I do think Shy Tuttle out of this whole group here, I think Shy Tuttle will be the one to get cut. All right, and some re-signings. So we just had a couple of re-signings. Free agency is next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So we did our re-signings so far, just our free agents. Hopefully, Mike Jackson will be a part of that. We'll see a few other players if we re-sign them. But we re-signed Andy Dalton to a 2-year, $8 million deal with $6 million guaranteed. And to me, the reason why they re-signed him is his relationship with Bryce. I think first and foremost, that's what it was about. He's a good veteran with a lot of experience. He won us a game last year. But again, the biggest thing I think I like about this is his relationship with Bryce and helping Bryce continue to grow. I think that's the biggest thing is investing into that quarterback room and just not disrupting it. And that's what I feel like Dan didn't want to do was disrupt that room. And then we also signed J.J. Jansen to a one-year deal. He's 39 years old. He's the longest tenured Panther in franchise history, having played in every single game, 260 total since joining the team. And fun fact, he was traded from the Green Bay Packers in 2009. So for some reason, I thought we picked him up and unrestricted free or undrafted free agent, but we actually traded him for a long snapper. I did not know that. Okay, so a couple players we're going to let test the market. So we have Tommy Tremble, Dan and Brandt. Uh, they have a certain value for these guys, and if the agents feel like their value is higher, Dan is going to let them test the market, which I love. We can't settle for the players that we have. We have to continue to try to challenge our roster and get better players. I like Tommy Tremble. And just recently, Raheem Blackshear was put on the market. They didn't tenure his his restricted free agent, but I like the GM seeing the value that they have. The agents think their value is higher. Go walk. We're not going to overpay. I like this. Um, I'm just not a fan of overpaying for players. I'm not a fan of overpaying for players that don't have a big impact during the game. None of these players, with all due respect, did not have a big impact during the game. Besides Eddie Pinero, he impacted the shit out of our games. He was complete trash. But these aren't like amazing players. They're good contributors, but they're not amazing players. But I do think Tommy Tremble will be the only one that will be resigned, but we'll see. Johnny Hecker, maybe. And Eddie Xavier, I just think are gone. Raheem Blackshear, I think, is gone as well. I just think we're going to get a punt returner, kick returner, whether it's free agency or the draft. And because I don't think it's on our roster right now, but I feel like they have a plan that they're going to attack. They have a couple people they have in mind that they feel is better than Raheem. So I'm all about it. Okay, so we're going to talk about some needs. We need a lot. Nose tackle, I feel like, again, we talked about before, is number one. Edge is number two for me, so this is all in order for me. Nose tackle is number one. You have to be able to stop the run, and you need to be able to have two guys like constantly trying to block you to free up the defensive ends and the edge rushers. But again, this is my list in order as far as what I feel is our biggest needs going in for agency this offseason. Safety is third for me. Just a lot of blown coverage, a lot of lack of communication. And this is going to be a complete overhaul, in my opinion. I just don't see Xavier Woods coming back. I think this will look totally different. And I think, in my opinion, the big spending that we're going to do this season, of this offseason, could be nose tackle, safety, receiver, and I think we get another corner or linebacker, but I feel like you cannot come away this offseason without getting a nose tackle and a safety. You have to get a safety, and it's going to be in free agency and the draft. You need a safety, but nose tackle for me has to be. If I don't see nose tackle first, like big name, and we'll go over some names here in a bit. I don't know, like I'm gonna be pretty disappointed about it. Okay, so Dan Morgan spoke about some needs. So he spoke about how defense is going to be a strong emphasis this coming free agency. He wants to attack the defense again that we talked about earlier, the same way he attacked the offensive line last offseason. He's not going to ignore the other side of the ball. However, you have to win at the line of scrimmage. So these are some things that Dan Morgan said during several different interviews. You have to win at the line of scrimmage. You have to be bigger. You have to be tougher, and you have to be more physical. Going to build the defense line like we did the offensive line last year. The offensive line, the defensive line have to be strong in this league, or you don't have a chance. And so he talked about needs that for this offseason. And to me, order matters. He had two different interviews that he talked about, and he mentioned interior defense line was number one each time. So each time Dan talked about this position first. But again, Dan wants our defense line to be bigger, tougher, and more physical in the trenches. Some of the traits that Dan talked about is for this position. So he was looking for height, length, violent at the point of attack, strength. So he wants someone that's going to be solid in that interior, that's going to take up two guys to free up the other players. Because if you don't have a good nose tackle, you're going to get run all over, and you're not allowing the defensive ends and the edge rushers to do their job. You have to be able to take up bodies. The prototypical nose tackle weight is 320 to 350 pounds with a low center of gravity, 6 foot to 6'3", 32 to 34 inches as far as arm length, and then with strength, 30 to 40 reps at 225. The other position that he spoke about that was second in these interviews was edge. And so he talked about how he wants an explosive, athletic edge with great bend and gets off the ball well. Safety was the third position he talked about. In safety, he talked about they need to be smart and a great communicator. And again, we talked about earlier how the safety corner, like they just were not communicating well. And it definitely seemed like it was more safety. You had Jordan Fuller, trash, see ya. Then you have Xavier Woods that just wasn't really good as well. I feel like he was below average. Safety, I feel like this would be a big emphasis. And we'll go into some of the players here in a bit, but safety was third on his list. But with the safeties last year, you did see several examples of that where due to not being on the same page, it led to a touchdown or an explosive play. The other two positions he talked about was offensive linebacker and corner. So those were the other two he kind of used interchangeably. The offensive linebacker, he talked about how he wants the person to be smart, have good instincts, run and close gaps, hit, finish tackles, and cover well. He says this when a linebacker can cover well, that really increases a player's value and being able to blitz. So outside linebacker was a need that he talked about, and then a cornerback as well. So defense is going to be a huge priority, but not the only priority. He does want to add another wide receiver, tight end, or for running back in free agency or the draft. But Dan did talk about the wide receiver room. He loves our wide receiver room. That's what he, in quotes, loves our wide receiver room. And I do want to be able to kind of temper expectations with wide receiver. I know wide receiver people are like wanting a big hit. I don't think you're going to see it this offseason. We'll go over some potentials, but I think the best way to get is Chris Godwin, maybe. But I feel like this season is going to be wide receiver by committee. And I'm going to go into more about the free agency coming up because it's first, and then I'll eventually start talking about the draft as far as players who I think they'll go after, some potential there that we may do. but I'm really going to focus on free agency right now. But I do feel like the wide receiver room is going to be by committee, which the wide receiver room wasn't bad. I mean, we still need Xavier Legette to progress and step up. If he can do that, it'll be a huge win for us. Jalen Coker was a great surprise, great contributor. Adam Thielen is Adam Thielen, just very consistent, old, reliable. But I feel like at the very least, you're going to see us get a speedster, whether it's free agency or the draft. That's what we need is a speedster, just to be able to threaten the secondary and the safeties. But Dan says he loves our wide receiver room, but think they will draft or sign a wide receiver, but they aren't desperate. So if a receiver they love falls down into the draft, or if there's a receiver in free agency that, maybe doesn't get a couple, some good offers, they'll go after him. But they're not going to be desperate about signing a guy. So, which I like, and you shouldn't neglect the receiving room or the offense in general. So I like not being able to, the mindset of like not reaching. Like again, when we start talking about the draft, like the Ted McMillan at 8, that's reaching. But I'll talk about that later. But when he was talking about the wide receivers, he mentioned Thielen, Coker, and Xavier. Again, order matters. He wants playmakers on that side of the ball, but order matters. So to me, and I agree with this. Thielen number 1, Coker number 2, Xavier number 3. As far as like best to worst, ranking them, I agree with that. So hopefully that Excel sees that and kind of uses that as fuel to improve. He needs to work on his hands, man. Like his route running, his physicality was good. He was improving, but he needs to work on his hands. Okay, so let's talk about some potential free agents. So nose tackle, again, my number 1 priority this offseason. We'll start with the top. So you have DJ Jones. He's from the Broncos. He's 30 years old. He's 6 foot, 305 pounds. So he's a little lighter for a nose tackle, but very strong. He's good at stopping the run. 2021, he led all defensive tackles in ESPN's run stop win rate at 47%. And he also has ties with Evero. So this is a potential player that I could see us getting that is definitely better than Shai Tuttle. So I wouldn't be mad at this. You have BJ Hill. He was drafted by the Giants in the 3rd round and then traded to the Bengals. So he played for the Bengals last year. He's 29. He's 6'3", 311 pounds. Again, great run stopper, this is what I want to see. With nose tackle, I want to see a player that is a great run stopper. Pass rush is a plus. I don't want them to be garbage at pass rushing, but run stopping has to be number 1, which it is definitely number 1 for Evero. But BJ Hill is a great run stopper. In 2022, he had a 10.7% run stop percentage, which was 7th in the league. He had 3 sacks last season. So this is a player, again, that I wouldn't be mad about. You have Sebastian Joseph Day. So he played for the Titans this past season. He's 29. He's 6'4", 310 pounds. He had 44 total tackles, 2.5 sacks. Again, he's more of a run stopper versus pass rush. The PFF grade for run defense was 77.9, which was pretty good. He played for the Rams for 4 seasons, signed with the Chargers for 2, and then 2023 season he signed for the 49ers, and then he signed with the Titans for 2024. So good player, but it's been kind of passed around a little bit. But again, someone that I think that wouldn't be their number 1 priority, but I wouldn't be mad about this. But this wouldn't be like the splash that I would be excited about, but it's an upgrade to Shai Tuttle. You have Javon Kinlaw. He played for the Jets last season. He's 27. He's 6'5", 319 pounds. He's better at pass rush than run defense. He did have 5 sacks last season. His pass rush ranked 35th in the league, and his rush defense ranked 88th, which was really, really poor. He did have 2 forced fumbles, which was 1st in the league. But again, I would say he's mid, but he's better than Shai Tuttle. You have Greg Gaines. He played for the Bucs last season. He's 27 years old. He's 6'1", 312 pounds, drafted by the Rams in 2019 in the 4th round. He had 24 tackles this past season. He's average as well. He had 1 sack this past season. Their run defense grade was ranked 75th out of 219, and pass rush was pretty much one of the worst in the league. So this is where you would, maybe, you know, having a guy like this wouldn't be your starter, but would be, a backup, like maybe someone that's going to take Ashawn Robinson's spot. But this isn't someone that I would say, oh, so excited we got him. But again, better than Shy Tuttle. Milton Williams. So there's been several rumors on Twitter talking about the Panthers are really high on getting him in free agency. He played for the Eagles this past season. He's 25 years old, so he's young. He's 6'3", 290 pounds, really solid big guy. He's a great pass rusher. He was 14% pressure rate, which was number one in the NFL amongst defensive tackles last season. So great pass rusher. But run defense is not as good. Run defense is actually pretty poor. Again, like I would be kind of excited about this, but I want my nose tackle to be strong and be able to stop the run. I don't know if he's a fit in Evero's scheme, with Evero wanting someone that can stop the run before they can pass rush. Again, I won't be mad at this, but he played for the Eagles last season. He's obviously really good, but his run defense was not good last year. And then you have Puna Ford. So Puna played for the Chargers this past season. He's 29. He's 5'11", 310 pounds. Great at run defense and pretty good at pass rush. He did help the Chargers last year. They become the best scoring defense in football. So he definitely helped with that. He had 3 sacks this past season and 8th in batted passes. This is someone I would not be mad at, right? If we sign him, the balance of pass rush and run defense I like. TJ Jones, BJ Hill, Puna Ford, Milton Williams. I feel like those are my top 4. But these are some possibilities that we could see us resign. That we could see Dan Morgan sign. But we'll see if some of these actually hit free agency, though. So we'll see. All right. The other one is edge. So edge rusher. So edge, I feel like, is number 2. Again, with edge, let's say this, like with edge, like we need more edge rush. I just don't see if we spend big money in free agency with edge rusher. You already spent money on JW on Clowney and DJ Wanham this past off season. They're not your problem solvers. They got better especially when DJ Wanham was playing. The edge rush got a little bit better. It definitely can improve, and I'm gonna be mad at them signing another edge rusher. It's just how much money they're gonna put into free agency for edge rusher. I think edge rusher is gonna be more the draft at 8 than it is gonna be big spending in free agency, but we'll see. So there's actually a good amount of prospects that are coming out that we could, free agents that we could possibly sign. So Josh Sweat is one of the bigger ones. He played for the Eagles this past season, 28 years old. He's 6'5", 265 pounds. His pass rush was 71.5 PFF, which was ranked 38th, and his rush defense was 69.3 PFF at 48th. So not bad at both pass rush and rush defense. I like that. 12% pressure rate. He had 8 sacks this past season, 18th in hurries. So this would be one of the bigger signings. I think he's going to have a pretty big deal. One of the bigger free agency signings coming up. This is his last, probably one of his last, or the last big contract that he'll sign. So I think he's going to be looking for some big money, and we'll see. If I don't see a sign of him, but again, if we can, I'll take it. Nose tackle and edge rusher. Let's fix that defensive line. Khalil Mack. So Khalil Mack, he played for the Chargers this past season. He's 34. I'm surprised this dude's still playing, but there's rumors about him, going back to Chicago to finish up his career. But we'll see. But he's 6'3", 269 pounds. He had 20 tackles this past offseason. He had 6 sacks. But he's still playing really well. He had a 90.4 overall PFF grade, 88 run PFF graded with run defense, and 79.9 PFF pass rush. He was first in batted passes, 8th Pro Bowl this year. So still playing at a high level. It's just he's going to sign a 1-2 year deal. At 34, he's getting up there, but still, like, this guy is a physical freak, dude. This guy is a beast. So again, something we mad at, but I just don't see him and us like, you know, signing. I just don't see him coming to Carolina for a year or two, unless we just overpaid. And I don't see that happening. Malcolm. So you have Hassan Reddick. So Hassan Reddick, he played for the Jets this past season. He's 30 years old, 6'1", 240 pounds. He played only 10 games this past season. Only had one sack. The holdout, he had the holdout with the Eagles, and then he got traded to the Jets, I believe. Is that if I remember correctly? But never came back to the Jets facility after the physical. It cost him $5 million. He changed agents. So again, not as bad as the what was his name? Deontay Johnson, like handling of like contract year, but he didn't help himself. He cost himself a lot of money. I mean, the guy does deserve to get paid. Don't get me wrong, but he could have handled it better. I mean, I get being frustrated and then trying to use some leverage, but didn't work out. So we'll see where he goes. I would love to have Hassan come back. I still think he's got another like 3-4 years of playing at a high level. So I would not be mad at all if Hassan Reddick came back. You have Malcolm Kuntz, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. He played for the Raiders this past season. He's young. He's 26 years old. He's 6'2", 250 pounds. He was drafted by the Raiders in 2021. He had a really good, promising 2023 season. He had 8 sacks that season. And then he tore his right ACL right before the 2024 season opener. That was his contract year. So the Raiders are rebuilding, so I can see them not re-signing him. This could be something that we do a 2-year deal, and bring him in, and hopefully he can, basically starts where he left off before the 2024 season. So this could be a possibility, but again, you're risking the injury. So, but again, he's young. He's 26. So, that could be someone that we could bring in. Baron Browning, he was drafted by the Broncos in 2021. He was then traded to the Cardinals this past season. He's 25 years old. He's 6'3", 240 pounds. He played 13 games this past season. He had a decent pass rush PFF grade at 76.3. His run defense was pretty poor. He only had 2 sacks. The 55th hurries last season. Foot injury caused him to be on IR after week 2, and he was out for 4 weeks. So this would be someone that I don't think will be signed day 1 or day 2 of free agency, but it could be someone that we could bring in as competition and be able to maybe do edge as committee. So someone that we could possibly target. DeMarcus Lawrence, he's 33 years old, so he's getting up there with Khalil Mack. He had a midfoot sprain after week 4, and that he was out for the season last season. But within 4 weeks, he had 3 sacks and 1 forced fumble in 4 games played. That's not bad at all. And then the year before that, he played 17 games with 4 sacks. So last season he was doing well, and then just with that injury, it was a bummer. But he's getting up there in age. Could be someone that we target, but again, I don't know if we do target someone like him because we already have, veterans at the edge, 2 veterans at the edge. So we'll see. Chase Young is someone that could be someone we target. He had 11% pressure in his rebound season last season with the Saints. His pass rush grade at PFF was 66. If you remember, he had the 2023 knee dislocation. He played 17 games this past season, so he did play a full season. He had 5.5 sacks, but as the season went on, his pressures increased. At the end of the season, he was 5th in hurries and 7th in total pressure. So I know we brought him in this past off season, and he eventually signed with the Saints. The Saints are very well over the cap. Could he be someone that comes back and we give him some money? We'll see. Dante Fowler, he's 31 years old, 6'3", 261 pounds. He had 11 sacks this past season, 2 forced fumbles, 38th in total pressure, and his run defense is average. So this wouldn't be a bad signing at all. I wouldn't be mad at it. You have Deo and Ode Yingbo. I probably butchered the hell out of that name, but he played for the Colts this past season. He had tore his Achilles in 2021, so he has like that history of injury. But he did play 10 games this past season. He had a hamstring injury midseason. He's 25, 6'6", 286 pounds. This guy is a beast. In 2023, he had 12 sacks, and then in this past season, he only had 4. He ranked 42nd in total pressures and average run defense. So again, I think if we brought someone in like this, it would be competition, just trying to add depth in this group. You have Matt Judon. I believe he played for the Falcons this past season. He's 32. He's 6'3", 270 pounds. He had 6 sacks. He was average at rush defense and pass rush. So I wouldn't be mad at this. Then you have Aziz Ojolari. He's 24, pretty young, 6'3", 240 pounds. Run defense is average. It's okay. Pass rush is average. He did have 7 sacks this past season. He did have a toe injury week 12 that placed him on IR, and then he had a hamstring and an ankle injuries early in the season. So he is injury prone. The last 2 seasons, 2022, past 3 seasons, 2022, 23, and 24. And out of the 34 games played, out of the 34 games that he's been a part of, he's only played 18. So he's played 50% of the games that, since he's been signed the last 3 years, past off seasons. So someone that's going to play 50% of the games, but again, he's young. Let him heal. We'll see. But again, he had 7 sacks and only played 12 games. That's not bad. It's not bad. It's just he's injury prone. So those are some possibilities. Some guys that we could possibly see come in, or the other pull up here. So wide receiver. So Garrett Wilson, that was a big one that a lot of people were talking about. Garrett Wilson, great player. He's 24. He's 6 foot, 192 pounds. This past offseason, he had 101 receptions for 1,104 yards, 7 touchdowns, and played 17 games. So he played every game. But in order to get him, we need to trade for him. We need to trade if we're going to acquire him. Some other suitors that are out there, you have the Broncos, the Cowboys, the Steelers. The Commanders were a part of them, but they picked up Debo. So I feel like they're out. But the compensation for this, I think it's going to be a first and a second. I don't think we're going to do any trading. Dan, I'll talk about a little bit later. I just don't see us doing trading right now. We need a lot of players. We still need to add a lot of positions. And unless we were like the Texans, right? We were in a position like the Texans were, and you got a lot of players. You just had to add that quarterback, and now you have the quarterback, and now let's add a receiver. We still have a lot of holes. I just don't see us trading for a receiver. If we were in that position and we had good draft capital, better draft capital, and we had better and more cap room, I do think that we would make that trade. But I think we're a year out before we do it. I still think this year is going to be wide receiver by committee, which I do, and I understand people are going to hate that. But we're not an off season away. We still are in building mode. We're getting better, but we're still in building mode. People can be impatient. I see on Twitter all the time. You need to do this, this, and this, and we're good. We need to do this, this, this. Well, can you do that and that? Can you afford, 3 Pro Bowl players, and then you're going to draft Mason Graham and then sign this and then draft this guy? You can't just lay out something and not, I just don't understand that. People that do that on Twitter all the time. But Garrett Wilson, I just don't see it'll happen, but we'll see if anybody in the league does it. But I do think it'll take a first and a second to get him. T. Higgins, he was tagged, so $26 million. But T. Higgins is another player, I think the player that all Panther fans want, the big splash that they want. I just, 1, don't see it happening, and 2, I don't know. T. Higgins is an amazing player, but is he a 1? I think he can be, but is he I don't know, top 6, 7 in the league and receiver? Nah. I don't know, but still good player. 26 years old, 6'4", 219 pounds. He had 73 receptions for 911 yards. He played 12 games this past season. Um, you know, yeah, I think he was from reports when I read that he's looking for 30 million per year for his next contract. He does have injury concerns. He has a hamstring that's been bothering him. It's been a concern for him his whole career. He had a quad injury that missed 3 games this past season. So that is another reason why I would not be a fan of like spending all this money on a player that is he a true one? Is he gonna make a difference? Is he gonna be a difference maker? I think he'll be a good player, but I don't think he's gonna be like I don't know if we're because we're gonna eventually if we got T Higgins, we have to be able to trade for him because they tagged him. So we have to give him what I believe it's a second, and then pay him. I, I don't know, man. I'm just I feel like we can allocate our money and resources somewhere else and look at receiver next year. Um, but again, I wouldn't be mad at this. I just don't. I think some Panther fans need to just kind of relax and because you get a lot of Panther fans that just say, "Hey, I don't know." They give other Panther fans that are not on board with this a hard time. Like, well, when are you going to spend money for uh, Bryce Young? Like, everyone's afraid to spend money, trade, do this, and make moves. Well, some moves can be great on paper, and some moves are not. Some moves there's a reason for it. Like, we have so many holes in defense. We're not in a position, in my opinion, to trade a lot of compensation and pay a player a lot of money with the way our team is right now. It's not a number one priority. Does Bryce Young need a number one wide receiver? Yes. Does he need more weapons? Yes. I agree with that. But we don't need to over exaggerate and try to get like these big name players. How many times do we see teams that won in free agency? Did they really win in the season? No. Every time I see a team that spend big money on free agency, it's they're not good. Look at the Patriots several years ago. They spent tons of money and they were now worse in the league. I'm not saying, again, I say this to say like Gary Wilson and T. Higgins are good players, but what are you willing to pay and what are you willing to give up to get them? And what is that going to cost you with other players and other positions that you need to invest in? There has to be a balance. Okay, so Chris Godwin played for the Bucks this past season. This is the player I feel like if we get a player, this is to be the guy I feel like we get. But again, I think doing the tag, putting the brand or the yeah, putting the tag on players is up by tomorrow. I want to say. I feel like so. In 24 hours, we'll see if Chris Godwin gets tagged or not. But he's still semi young. I mean, he's getting up there, but he's not old. He's 28 years old. He's 6'1", 208 pounds. He played 7 games. He had 50 receptions for 576 yards. He does have ties with Dave Canales, though. He had a left ankle dislocation this past offseason that ended his season. But before his injury, after the 7th game, he was second in yards. He was third in reception touchdowns, first in first downs, 0 drops, and his reception percentage was 80.6, which ranked him 4th. He was third in explosive plays, and we do not have an explosive player on this team. So this would be a huge upgrade. I'm a huge fan of doing this than I am giving up all that draft capital and money for Garrett Wilson and T. Higgins. Chris Godwin isn't going to be cheap, but he's not going to demand all that. So this would be someone I would be excited for us to sign. And plus, you're taking away a receiver from the division, or one of our division rivals, in the Bucks. The Bucks are going to be competing for the NFC South title along with the Falcons. The Saints, I believe, will be out of it. But if we can take a really good player off those Bucks team, I'm down for it. But again, injuries are the biggest concern with him. He had past major injuries. He tore his ACL and sprained his MCL in his career, so he's got some injury concerns, but great player. You have Marquise Brown. He's 27. He's 5'9", 180 pounds. He was drafted in the first round in 2019 by the Ravens. He's a speed deep threat. Again, someone that we don't have on our roster. He was traded to Arizona back in 2022. He's had his ups and downs with injuries and QB changes. 2023 season, he had the lowest yards for a season in his career. He was traded to the Chiefs. He played 2 games, 9 receptions, 91 yards. It was a contract year, season injury, shoulder injury, which required surgery. So I think you'll see him be signed somewhere else. I don't think it'll be an expensive signing, but again, like someone I wouldn't be too mad about acquiring via free agency, because it's a type of player that we don't have in our roster. We need speed. Amari Cooper is another player that is a possible free agent. Someone that is going to be going into free agency. He's 31, 6'2", 202 pounds. He played for the Browns this past season, and we all know how the Browns were. He had 24 receptions for 250 yards. He played only 6 games. He was traded to the Bills. He played 8 games there. He had 44 receptions for 547 yards. He had a wrist injury that missed him 2 games. But overall, 68 receptions for 797 yards, 6 touchdowns in 14 games played. Not bad. And again, wouldn't be mad at this. This is a good player, but we'll see if he wants to play for the Panthers and if we're interested in bringing him in and talking to him and his agent. But some other free agent players or receivers that I don't honestly that are out there, but I don't see us going after would be Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, and Stephon Diggs. I just don't see that happening. Okay. So we have safety. So safety, I feel like, is our number 2 priority because we don't have anyone in the safety room right now. We need a rehaul at the safety position after last season. I can see us signing Xavier Woods at a team-friendly deal, but he's just average in my opinion, maybe a little bit below average. I won't be mad if we just try to upgrade from Woods in free agency and just rehaul the whole safety group. You have several good players that are coming out in free agency right now. You have Javon Holland from the Dolphins. He's 24. He's 6'1", 210 pounds. He had a really strong 2023 season. His production did decrease in 2024, but again, he played for the Dolphins. Like the teams played the Dolphins a little bit different once Tua came out, and they just weren't competitive. So I do feel like that's a factor. Run defense is solid. Pass rush is okay. His coverage was average to below average this past season. But again, I think because the Dolphins, they were not scoring points and then teams were just easily attacking them different ways. I feel like that was a factor. But Javon Holland, I feel like, is someone that we are rumored to target and would not be mad about this at all. You have Trayvon Moehrig. He played for the Raiders this past season. He's 25 years old. He's 6'2", 202 pounds. He was drafted in the second round in 2021 by the Raiders. He had 104 tackles this past season, 2 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries. He had a really strong 2023 season as well. They do project him with 12 plus million a year. He was amazing at run defense, great at pass rush, average to below average in coverage though. But he's steadily improving each season. So this would not, again, be someone I would not be mad about with us signing. You have Talanoa Hufanga. He played for the 49ers. He's 26 years old. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds. He does have injury concerns. He had an ACL tear in 2023 that carried over to the 2024 season. In 2023, he had 52 tackles, 3 interceptions in 10 games. And then 2024, he only played 5 games due to a wrist injury that was season-ending. The 49ers defense was impacted from his absence. you did see a difference in points per game. They did increase. So he was definitely a factor on that defense. It's just injuries are a big concern for him. So if we do sign this guy, hopefully he can stay injury free. Um, you have John Johnson. He played for the Rams this past season. He's 30 years old. He's 6 foot, 209 pounds. He's very good in coverage. He did have one interception though. Shoulder injury in week 2. He had a hairline fracture at his scapula, his shoulder blade. He was placed on IR for 4 to 6 weeks and stayed on IR for 11 weeks. There's a rule: you can only reactivate 8 players from IR in a season. At the time, they already had done so 7 times. They want to be strategic. What I read when I did research with this, they want to be strategic with how they used the final IR activation. And it was purely personnel based. It was not due to Johnson's ability on the field at all. So, good player, had some limited time, but there were circumstances to that. So this would again be a player I would not be mad about with us signing. You have Julian Blackman. Julian Blackman played for the Colts. He's 26 years old. 6 foot, 202 pounds. He's good in coverage. Run defense is average. He had 3 interceptions this past season. He had a really strong 2023 season with 88 tackles, 4 interceptions, and 8 passes defended, and 2 fumble recoveries in 15 games. He played through a torn labrum in the shoulder this past season. I believe he already had surgery this offseason, but played strong safety, but moved to free safety due to the injury. So injury concern, but really good, solid player. His production did decrease due to the injuries, but again, if he can have a successful surgery and be fully healthy, I would be on board for this as well. Okay, and then the other one is cornerback. So I honestly don't see us getting a top tier cornerback in free agency with J.C. Horn set to get a big payday. I do see us drafting a cornerback too. Maybe we get a decent, okay. Hopefully we can re-sign Mike Jackson and maybe add another player for competition. But I do see us drafting a cornerback too. But here's a list of some of the top cornerbacks coming out. You have DJ Reed, who played for the Jets this past season. He's 28 years old. He's 5'9", 188 pounds. He didn't have any interceptions, but he's very consistent in coverage and run defense. He was, in my opinion, overshadowed by Sauce Gardner, and they're projecting 12 to 15 million per year with DJ Reed. Charvarius Ward, he played for the Niners this past season. He had a strong 2023 season with 72 tackles, 5 interceptions, and 1 forced fumble. He had, if you remember, he was the one that had the significant personal tragedy. His daughter passed away in October, and he's mentioned he doesn't want to be in California anymore due to the memories, which I could totally understand. I have 3 kids. I couldn't imagine that. He did, and then he had a child born in December 2024. 2024 season struggled with 54 tackles, no interceptions, and no forced fumbles, but I believe in his talent. I see him bouncing back and having a successful 2025 season, and praying for the guy and future success. This would be someone I would love to cheer for if he came to the Panthers. Really hope his family and he's doing okay. But this is someone I would be really excited about getting in free agency. Carlton Davis III, he played for the Lions this past season. He's 28 years old. He's 6'1", 206 pounds. He played for the Bucs for 6 seasons. He was a part of the Super Bowl winning team. He was traded to the Lions. He's great in man and zone coverage. The Lions could re-sign him. He had 2 interceptions this past season. He had a broken jaw in December this past year. He cleared concussion protocol. Speculation that the Lions will look for cornerback in the draft, so they could re-sign him, but also they could let him go. We'll see if he is able to test the market. But he's projected to ask for 13 to 15 million per year. Brian Murphy Jr., who played for the Vikings this past season, he's 27. He's 5'11", 190 pounds. He had 6 interceptions, which was first in the NFL this past season. He had 69 solo tackles, which was 6th in the NFL. 3rd best in receptions allowed. Very effective in coverage. Can see him being one of the highest paid cornerbacks in the league. He did have a grade 3 MCL sprain in 2023, but overall, like pretty injury free, great production. I don't see us re-sign or signing this guy. I think the Vikings will, but again, someone that could possibly test the free agent market. But I just don't see him and JC getting the same. Like they're not signing JC and then signing Brian Murphy. But you never know. Russell Douglas, he played for the Panthers actually in 2020. He's 29 years old. He's 6'2", 209 pounds. The Packers traded him to the Bills in October of 2023. He had a pretty strong 2023 season. He played 15 games, 41 tackles, no interceptions though, one forced fumble, 5 passes deflected. He's average in coverage. I see the Bills re-signing him, to be honest, but he's looking that the contract that they believe that he's going to ask for is 10 to 12 million per year. Then we have linebacker. So I can see us getting a linebacker in free agency this year because the linebacker class in the draft this year is pretty weak. I really don't see us spending big in free agency at the linebacker position, but you never know. With Shaq Thompson's injury history and us, with us moving on from him, I see them adding another young player, and honestly, I see it more in the draft than I do in free agency. But we'll see. You never know. You never know. Dre Greenlaw. So he played for the 49ers this past season. He's 27 years old. He's 6 foot, 230 pounds. He tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl of 2023. He had a season debut last year in Week 15 versus the Rams. So this guy is really great in coverage and great against the run. Injuries obviously are a concern. He is amazing when healthy. I know the 49ers offered him a 1-year prove-it deal, but he's going to test the market and see if he can get more guaranteed money. But this past season, he only played 2 games. I know the 49ers want to re-sign him, but I think they're obviously being smart because of his injury history, but he's going to want to see what he can get in free agency. But I can see him sign I don't think you're going to see him sign like a 3-4 year deal. I think it'll be like 2-year deal, maybe 3, but I see honestly like a 1 to 2 year deal. Nick Bolton, he played for the Chiefs this past season. He's young. He's 24, 5'11", 237 pounds. To me, he's one of the top linebacker free agents in my opinion. He's very reliable, good in coverage. He's pretty average in pass rush, but he had 4 sacks this past season, 106 tackles, but just a great player. He's a great leader in the locker room. This is someone that, again, I would love to have as a Panther, but again, we'll see if they spend that money as a linebacker or not. You have Zach Bond, who played for the Eagles this past season. He was amazing in the Super Bowl. Amazing. He's 28 years old. He's 6'3", 225 pounds. He had a breakout season this past season. He was on a 1-year prove-it deal, and he proved it. He had 151 tackles, which was second in the NFL, 11 tackles for loss, 5 QB hits. He did have 3.5 sacks, and he played 16 games this past season. He has amazing coverage skills. He has, 4 passes defended, 1 interception, 5 forced fumbles, which was first in the NFL. He was 6th in the NFL in sacks at linebacker. And then he got first team All Pro. He was a finalist for the Defensive Player of the Year. I think he's going to ask for 12 to 15 million per year. This is him and Nick Bolton, in my opinion, are going to be the 2 top linebacker free agents in this free agency class. You have Robert Spilling, I think that's how you say his name. He played for the Raiders this past season. He's 29 years old, 6'1", 229 pounds. He had 110 solo tackles, which was 3rd in the NFL, 47 assisted tackles, which was 3rd in the NFL. Really good in run defense, good in pass rush, but he did struggle in coverage. He had 2 sacks this past season. Someone, that, I wouldn't be mad about them signing. He was a great leader for the Raiders defense. But again, in coverage, he's a liability. Levante David, He played for the Bucks this past season. He's 35 years old, so he's getting up there. He led the Bucks with 134 tackles this past season, which was the highest tackle count since 2015. He was fully healthy this past season. 17 games played, so maybe he'll do a year deal. But I think if he does, it'll be with the Bucks. But he could be someone that can potentially hit the free agent market. So with free agency, and I feel like this is the mindset for the Panthers as well, with Dave, Dan Brandt, and David Tepper, that you draft for need. Need is for free agency. So whenever you going into this free agency, we need to get players that for the defense. So nose tackle, edge, like all the needs that you have, you address that in free agency. And then when it comes to the draft, you're not being desperate and overreaching for somebody. So some drafting strategies that that I think that they're going to utilize is they're going to get best player available. Now, if all things are even, they're going to draft need. If not, they're going to take best player available, even if it isn't a need. And that's the mindset that I feel like majority of the cases you should take. But there's a balance to it. The trade, as far as like trades and free agents in the draft, most likely we're not going to trade up. But I do believe they're going to be willing to trade it down if it makes sense for them to do so. And the compensation is going to have to be worth it for them to make that move. So if they do make any trades, especially in the first round, I don't see them trading up. I see them trading back. But in those second and third day draft, I do see them possibly moving up. I'm a fan of them moving back unless it's a blue chip player at 8, because there's a big drop off from 8th to our second pick, which I believe is like 58th, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. It's a very late second round pick, so hopefully we can trade back and allocate a second round pick and maybe a third. So, free agency is next Wednesday. I'm looking forward to seeing what who they sign, and if they're able to get a nose tackle, edge, see who they address. But depending on what they do in free agency, that'll let me know kind of like what needs are still there for the draft. So in my next video, I'm going to talk about we're really focused on free agency right now, and then once we address free agency, then we'll start talking about the draft. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you please like, comment, subscribe if you haven't done so. I'm all open for positive and negative constructive criticism. So if you liked the video, let me know what you liked about it. If you didn't, let me know what I could improve upon on it. But I'm hoping to try to give you a video at least one time a week. So I work 2 different jobs, have 3 kids, don't do too much, don't have a lot of time to do that much, but I want to be able to kind of slowly build a little community where we can talk about Panther football. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and talk to you next time. Peace.